So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Tibby College's webinar on the next big thing. My name's Barb Thomas, and it's my honor to coordinate today's webinar. So this is actually the second of our entrepreneurial series of webinars. We're going to do a total of 4 this year. We have additional webinars slated for January and in April. So if you've registered for this one, we will make sure that you get information on the other ones as well. We've already done our side hustle how-to webinar, and I will put a link in the chat to that if you would like to watch it. As always, all of our webinars are free and open to the public. If you see one that you think might be interesting to other people, please feel free to share the information with them. Next up is actually our December webinar, which includes and features our Pomerantz business librarians. It's called Resources at Your Fingertips, and they are going to provide helpful hints on everything that you can access through both the University of Iowa Library as well as your own public library near you. So watch for information on that as well. Now, as I mentioned, today's webinar will be recorded. We will share a link out to everyone who registered, but please feel free to share it with others that might be interested. And we are lucky enough to have a wonderful panel of experts with us. Now, to start it off, our webinar today will be moderated by Kimm Harris. Now, Kimm is an associate professor of practice in entrepreneurship at the Tibby College of Business, and she received both a BA and an MBA from the University of Iowa. And now she is joined today by a distinguished panel of experts, including Hannah Barnstable, president and founder of 7 Sundays and a 2004 Tibby graduate. Our second panelist is John Lensing, who received his MD from the University of Iowa and is the co-founder and CEO of OpenLoop. And our final panelist is Aaron Warner, an Iowa MBA alum and the founder of ProCircular, as well as the founder and president of Cybercade. Now, we will have time for questions, and so please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. In addition, if you'd like to, you can use the chat to engage with others. I'll come back into the meeting so that we can lead the questions. But with that, I'm going to turn it over right to Kimm Harris. Take it away, Kimm.
Thank you, Barb. We are so excited to have these panelists, and hear about their amazing entrepreneurial journey. Before I talk with them and hear about their experiences, I did want to share with everyone that the University of Iowa John Papajohn Entrepreneurial Center has a lot of resources available to not only students, faculty, staff, alumni, but also to community members. And so if you have an interest or you know someone that is interested in starting a business, getting more information, or they have a great idea, please direct them our way. And you can find those resources at Iowa JPEC, iowajpec.com. And we'd be happy to help you. So we're going to first ask our panelists to introduce themselves and briefly about their business, and then we'll get into additional questions. So if we could start with you, John, can you introduce yourself and your business?
Hi, John Lensing, CEO and one of the founders at OpenLoop Health. We are a white label telehealth infrastructure company, meaning that we supply all of the software and technology that we build to organizations who are looking to do telehealth services. We also supply then our clinical network. So we have about 25,000 docs, nurses, therapists, dietitians, other healthcare providers that work with us. And these are the folks that actually see all the patients for us. The third piece of it then is we have all of the back office infrastructure. So think about all of the legal pieces, the compliance pieces, the HR pieces. And then we also handle all of the billing through our technology and platform. But we currently see and service about 100 to 200 different organizations, and in total, about a couple 100,000 to 300,000 patients a month.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. And Hannah, could we go to you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. I am a 2004 Iowa grad. I actually graduated in finance with an entrepreneurial certificate, and I spent my first 7 years after Iowa as an investment banker at a growing middle market investment banking firm. So I'm like kind of I took that weird leap from like a really structured service-oriented finance role into creating my own business, which is Seven Sundays. It's pretty easy to explain actually, because it's a consumer packaged good. So I'm sure everybody's eaten cereal before. We make cereal. Hopefully you've seen it. I started the company 12 years ago now at a farmer's market, and the idea was to flip the cereal aisle on its head. I felt as though there was an unmet consumer demand for food that actually was a good way to start your day. And so our big mission is that we are creating products that are coated in nostalgia, so they're really good, but they're rooted in real. We're a certified B Corp, which means that we prioritize our mission over our profit, so that makes what we do kind of fun and interesting. We're in about 4,000 or 5,000 retail stores today, including Costco, Whole Foods, Target in about a month. So hopefully you see it around, and excited to be here.
Thanks, Hannah. And I've enjoyed your cereal, so happy to hear about all your expansion going on there. And Aaron, can you introduce yourself and your company?
Sure. I'm Aaron Warner. I'm the CEO of a company called ProCircular. We're a cybersecurity and compliance firm. At the end of the day, we really protect our neighbors from bad guys. Hannah, I'll take a page from this is really what we do. That's a device that anybody can buy and use to hack garages or front doors or what have you. That was just on my desk. So we do some offense work. That's where if you need to know if the bad guys can get into your bank or school or organization, we can test that for you and then show you how to fix it. We do some defensive work, so we'll tell you ahead of time if a bad thing is starting to happen in your environment, and we can knock it down before it becomes a big problem. If something does become a big problem, we're the guys that you can call, and we will come in and help that North Korean hacker to the door. We also do a ton of GRC work, so compliance and basically risk management to help organizations set their cybersecurity up. Prior to that, I spent 22 years at a local firm here called Integrated DNA. Joe Walder and Trey and Roman and a bunch of really, really smart people. We got to build a biotech company together, and I learned a little bit about security there when everybody was trying to steal from us. So it's been a very interesting ride. University of Iowa, JPEC and Tippy have been a big part of our experience on this ride. Lots of great resources there. So I'm a huge advocate of Tippy. I'm an MBA grad. Truth be told, I barely finished. I did not finish my undergraduate degree, but somehow still made a go of it. I spent a lot of time at IDT when I was in my 20s. Yeah, still made a go of it and love the University of Iowa. Spent a lot of time with Tippy, and thanks for the opportunity to share, Kimm.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. And I'm sure you've made a lot of people's lives much better by whether it's offense or defense.
We try.
Really.
We try. We like to catch people before there's a problem.
Yes. Well, that's great. So on to really what our topic is today. This idea you had for a business, we're going to hear from each of our panelists on what sparked your business idea and then what got you to take the leap. So, John, if you could start us off with what sparked your business idea and how'd you take that leap?
Yeah, absolutely. Unlike Hannah and Aaron, I didn't really have a career before starting OpenLoop. I was still in school, so I was wrapping up my last year of medical school. And I think just through my experience, I was at the University of Iowa there, I was seeing patients drive really far to get the care that they needed, oftentimes 4 to 5 to 6 hours one way. I mean, if they had to take off time from work, they have to find childcare. They have to find lodging close to the University of Iowa, and it'd be an all-day excursion for them. And so, because of all of that, they'd come in sicker. They require more surgeries. They'd require more medications. It's an overall cost burden on for the patient as well as the health system. And we wanted to do something about it. And so when we started digging into the problem, it turns out there's just a huge shortage of healthcare providers across the country. Seems super simple, right? Get more doctors out there and they can help more people. A lot of barriers to actually adding more doctors into the mix. And so for us, it became a question of how do you take this pre-existing workforce that's already out there and make them more efficient with delivering care on a daily basis. And so that was the origin and founding idea for OpenLoop. I started dabbling around with it on the side when I was finishing up my studies. Was matching into plastic surgery for residency at the time up in Michigan, and started going down that pathway. Was planning on running the company throughout, on the side throughout the rest of my clinical training, but then company ended up taking off within the first 6 months of the business. And so I decided to discontinue any further training and jumped into this full time and haven't looked back.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I remember it, so I can attest to all of the activities you were doing to get that business going and trying to figure out how to stay engaged in your studies. So
yeah, I mean, I didn't have a business background by any means, and so University of Iowa invested a lot into me. I joined every entrepreneurial club I think you guys had, Founders Club, and every webinar or meeting. And there was they had some innovators program too that I was taking on the nights, like every Wednesday night for a few months, and that got us some grant money. So you guys definitely poured into me.
well, thanks for being here and sharing that. So Hannah, you shared a little bit about what you wanted to do, but where did you come up with this idea and how'd you take that leap into the farmers market and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, not dissimilar to John, and in fact, pretty common amongst a lot of entrepreneurs. We all start with a problem, like something that's like eating away at us. I think like a long time ago, pre-Seven Sundays, I thought you came up with a product or an idea, and then like that's what you did. But really, a lot of us entrepreneurs start with like the problem that's nagging us. And for me, it was really like at its heart, it was people health. And food and how food played as a part of that, right? So when I was growing up in the 90s and stuff, it was all about diet everything and diet soda. And as long as you ate fat-free cookies, you were solid. And no one was really talking about like what processed food does to your body. And all the little tricks that big food puts into products, whether it's a quote unquote natural flavor or a different type of sugar or a 0-calorie sweetener, all this stuff that I believed was not the right fit for long-term people health. So that was the problem that I was trying to solve when I kind of decided to leave banking. And by the way, I was in banking, but I worked with food companies. So a lot of my research was touring food plants, and then like visiting grocery stores and trying to understand the consumer and how they make decisions. So that was the problem I wanted to solve. And then I would say the thing that got me to take the leap is number one, like having the right support. So John, you mentioned Iowa being part of your, ability to launch. For me, not everybody was supportive of me leaving a 7-year career in banking where I was on track to be a partner in my late 20s. It was my partner in life said, I see that you're passionate about this. You need to go do it. So I think if some things you might not know how you're going to do it, but if you're starting to panic about potentially not doing it, that's when it's time to make the leap, right? So it was like I wasn't quite sure how I was going to go about this food problem and how it would play out, but I was starting to panic that if I stayed in banking too long, I might never do it, and I knew that I had to do it. So I think you won't always have 100% buy-in and support across all areas of your life, because when you do something new and innovative, people aren't going to understand, and that's okay. But you need some support. You need the right support. And then, yeah, that's kind of, I guess, where my mind was at, and what got me to take that leap out of a pretty stable career into doing something completely unknown.
Yeah, such a really important topic, the support that you need, and it sounds like it comes from a variety of places from John and Hannah. And so, Aaron, how did you get spark this business idea, and what got you to take the leap?
I heard somebody speak a couple of weeks back, and he said, everybody comes up to entrepreneurs and says, "Boy, you're so brave. You're so brave." He's like, "You act as if these people had any choice in the matter. They should be getting therapy." Instead of compliments. So I was one of those that was kind of compelled to do it. I grew up around entrepreneurs. My grandmother did a lot of development in Iowa City. IDT was a very entrepreneurial place. Joe Walder gave us more than enough rope when it came to authority. The tricky part was that I had been with IDT for so long that I was kind of Aaron from IDT. And when I wasn't that anymore, I had to sort of figure out, well, what do I want to be? What if I'm going to start a company, what do I want it to be? So honestly, before I had even settled on cybersecurity, I and a couple of friends had laid out some core values around what kind of a firm I would build if I had a chance to do it from the ground up. So that's sort of the softer side of it. I really wanted to build the place that I wanted to work, not just about the money, not just about the cybersecurity. I'm a technical guy, so I had to be able to parlay some of my experiences at IDT into things I love to learn. It needed to be a bit of a chaotic world, and cybersecurity fit that bill perfectly. We started in 2016. And I'll be your total transparency guy. That was the year of Hillary's emails. It was the first time that you heard the word cybersecurity in the news, right? So prior to that, it was a word that a bunch of nerds bandied about. We talked about it in the server room, but it wasn't on NBC. I mean, that is a file that under rather be lucky than smart sort of thing. The timing worked out really well, but I knew that it was going to get a little chaotic. I had no idea it was going to turn into what it is today. So that had a lot to do with it. I knew that I would get to work with some brilliant, sort of off the normal path people. I knew that it was going to be multidisciplinary. Cybersecurity is a thing that requires a variety of different skills, some of which are technical, most of which are people things. And if I'm being totally honest, because I think there are some people watching who are maybe on the fence, one of the things that I observed was that the people that I hung out with, the people who were really well paid, were people who worked for really big, great companies. The people who I knew who kind of paid others were people who owned the businesses that they worked for. And that kind of independence and frankly, access to that kind of wealth for me was a chance to do something bigger than what I might be able to do if I just went out and joined another firm. So those things, that sort of soup that happened in my head, that's what I was 42 years old. I just graduated from the Tippy School with my MBA. So I had teased up my accounting chops and felt like I could cover that side of it. And worst case scenario, I failed and I had to go back to work as a CIO, which for me, admittedly, was not much of a downside. I was pretty safe, relatively speaking. That said, because it's how I do things, I threw everything I had into it. So I was, and for a while, continued to be that entrepreneur that was cash poor, right? Like everything I owned was in the firm. So it's been quite an experience. I love that that's how it turned out, but it was all of those things that kind of led to the decision to really start a firm. And once you've made that decision, you put your head down and get to work. And here we are.
Well, thanks, Aaron. And it just shows how varied it can be in terms of what sparks your idea. Although, as Hannah said, it's usually a problem. You all identified a problem, but then also the passion to actually say, "Hey, I'm going to take that leap and start." And so you somewhat talked about it, but we're curious about what steps you took when you decided, okay, we're going to do this. So if you could share a little bit about those next steps.
Sure.
And John, I'm just going to keep the rotation going here. So John, could you start with that?
Next steps, yeah, it seems like yesterday I was contemplating these different things, and you can read about it online. People tell you a bunch of different stuff, but it seems a little chaotic when you're thinking about what do I actually have to do to get this thing off the ground. Um, there's so many pieces and paths you have to run in parallel, it feels like. Um, so I think the things that I wish I would have known at first is like find somebody who knows what they're talking about, right? Because you got to tell them what kind of business you're going to build. Even before you go set up a business legally, like there's a bunch of different ways you can structure it. You want to go an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp? Do you want to go the public benefit route? Are you going to be a for-profit? Are you going to be a not-for-profit? And the type of company you aspire to be in 10 years is likely how you're going to set up your company. And so I can save you a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money if you just have somebody you can sit down with to guide you through that process. But then, we spun up the legal side of it. Simultaneously, it was like, okay, then now what is the actual product we want to build? And so that was a customer discovery period for us. So I still remember I made a list of every single hospital in the state of Iowa. I think there's like 99 at the time that I did it. I wrote down every phone number in an Excel sheet, and then I started calling up every hospital in that list. I'd hit zero, asked for the hospital operator, asked that operator for the person in charge of physician recruitment. They put me in touch with them. I said, hey, I'm a student from the University of Iowa. I am doing a research study. Tell me what you do to find temporary medical staff to fill open gaps in coverage that you have. They would tell me, and I said, hey, if I develop a solution like this, would you be interested in trying it? And they said, yeah. So that's how I got my first, 10, 15 customers doing that through every hospital. And then I actually sat down to start building this. So then I partnered up with a local software development company because I had no technical background. Dumped about 50,000 of my student loans into this business and hired the firm, and they built up the front facing facade of our tech product, right? And they just connected it to a bunch of Excel sheets on the back end. And so that was the product I went to market with. Then I went back to those same hospitals. I sold them on. I said, hey, look, here's my business model. I paid an attorney like $500 to draft up a contract, and I was off to the races. I signed up some hospitals. I got some doctors on the system. I started manually matching them up on the back end, playing matchmaker, and I just force fed that system. Force fed it, got it moving, got the flywheel started, getting more hospitals, got some more folks in, brought in a co-founder. And then around the time where, we had started making some money on a monthly basis, I was like, it's time to scale this thing up now. And that's when I went out and started pitching to potential investors. And that's when we finally took on some investor money into the business. But from there, it was just about adding more fuel to the fire, right? Figure out the things that were working, look at the data, what that's telling you, and start to double down on those areas. But it's a very intimidating process at first, especially for those that haven't done it before. It's like there is a mess of stuff that you feel like you have to get done before you can actually start doing stuff in the business. But in all reality, you can be doing all of those things all at once.
Such great points in that customer discovery and actually just, talking to the customers seems like that was really one of the very first things that got you
Yeah, I mean,
into.
let them, you have to listen to the people who are actually going to pay you. because they're not going to pay you unless it actually meets a need and solves a problem for them. And so, we've been hyper aware of our customers and what they want from day one. We constantly talk with them, and that's how we figure out where we want to make improvements, how we want to iterate, and where we want to drive the company in the future. And it's all towards customer requests and demands.
Great. So Hannah, what steps did you take? I mean, you have a whole different type of product with it being cereal. So what did you do?
Well, so first of all, I think this is so fun because John and I, like, we all kind of go through the same process more or less. Like, yes, I'm a cereal company, but it was so interesting, John, to hear you talk through starting your business. And I wrote down the word rudimentary because I feel like one thing that happens with everybody who's, getting ready to take that leap and start a company is the founder has to go through some pretty rudimentary steps of like product market fit and figuring out like, if it's going to work. And like before you can add any fuel, before you can bring in investors, even like you have to understand if there's something there. And so actually tons of similarity with a food product. I was just thinking in my head, like, wow, I probably have seen over 100,000 people eat a bite of my product at some point. Like in those early days, we launched at a farmer's market so that I could understand people's reaction and I could watch their kid eat because we're trying to, make cereal sweetened with maple syrup instead of sugar or add more protein and we upcycle ingredient. We do all these crazy things. So I'm like, you still have to understand at the end of the day if there's a market for that. And so we started at a farmer's market just so I could sit there and watch people. And if they take out their wallet and they buy it, and then it became in the stores, right? So next thing you know, I'm in the store instead, but I'm still watching people eat the cereal and I'm, sampling and getting their reactions. And today I still do it. I go to Costco. I can't help myself. I stand in the cereal aisle and when people walk by and they're looking at it, I'm like, what are you looking for? What is it that's not being met here for you? And like, so I think that I just echo John, like starting off is really getting to the nitty gritty. You can write all the business plans you want, but until you're like making that Excel sheet and calling on hospitals or like watching somebody eat your product or asking the right questions, you can't really do much. You can't go out, you can't put yourself out there until you've got something to work with. And so for me, it was really leaning into that people health and knowing that I was going to stick to this. I was going to figure out a way to make it work regardless, but our products have shifted a lot over the years. So I think when you start off, you have to be curious and open-minded, and you have to get down to the nitty-gritty of like the Excel sheet, the phone call, the knocking on the door to understand if you've got something there. And to some extent, I still do that. And it sounds like, John, you do too. And I'm sure, Aaron, you do too. You always are trying to hear what people need so that you can keep solving that problem. And then I'm kind of a nerd. So like just as far as scaling a business, mentors were really big and reading books. Like I always worked at, even the investment bank I was at was kind of like a high growth mid-sized firm. So as we're now becoming a bigger and bigger company, I'm still reading books. Like how do I build the team and do reviews and enter this market and do these things right? And so I do lean on a lot of books and a lot of mentors to continue to build and scale the business.
Oh, such great suggestions too. You take customer discovery to a whole new level when I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, if I had to actually observe what people's physical reactions were to the taste, I mean, it's more than just asking and hearing, what they're saying. So that's
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
I bet if the kids liked it, that was a hit with the parents. Did they tend to buy it more?
Well, that's the big one. And yeah, I mean, our R&D, part of our R&D is having our kids, we have 3 kids and other people in our company have kids and we set that out and we see what happens. Cause, it's kind of from that standpoint, no one's going to be more honest than kids, when it comes to food. If you have kids, I mean, they're going to be honest. So yeah, you have to be ready for that true, that true feedback.
Yeah, that's great. So, Aaron, how about you? What steps did you take?
Yeah, a thing that and I can't take credit for it. Brandon Blankenship at work is our CISO. He looked into starting a cybersecurity firm, and he said, Aaron, one of the things I discovered is that just because you're good at a thing doesn't mean that you can run a business that does that thing. Those are different, right? A lot of the time that you spend, especially early on, in my case, was not cybersecurity work. It was just as John's saying, just as Hannah's saying, like just getting the structure of it in place. I called Paul Heath at the Small Business Association. They were very, very helpful. JPEC, I spent a lot of time with that crew. The other thing, and this is, a similar thread, it's what our head of sales calls getting your nose broken. So I'll never forget, within the first 6 months of starting the business, we paid, for us at the time, it was a ton of money to get a big booth at the ALA, the American Lawyers Legal Association. So all the lawyers in the country come together. We thought, oh, this is going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. These are lawyers. Like, who in this room doesn't need cybersecurity? And we were right. And we were also very, very wrong. I have never been told in more different ways how wrong I was about all of our assumptions about how easy this was going to be, about the language that we spoke. We would go up to these attorneys and say, hi, I'm Aaron with ProCircular. We're here to do, and they'd look at me like, why are you wasting my time? So after about 200 of those conversations, you find out pretty quickly, like, wow, a lot of our assumptions are wrong because nobody here seems interested in talking to us. So you ask, you refine the message, you ask, you refine the message. And over time, that pride-killing, very difficult process of learning from your customers and learning to listen to your customers, learning to hear what they have to say, often, which is contrary to what you had hoped they would say or assumed they would say. I don't know which are worse, Hannah, lawyers or children, but they both are very happy to tell you what you're doing wrong. So we listened very carefully at the beginning. We still listen very carefully. I just finished working on our 2024 strategic plan. There's a thing called Circle of Trust that's in that. That is a way to bridge the relationship between our customers and each other, and our customers and our firm. And half of the reason for that is so that we can better understand what they need, so that we can array ourselves to be able to meet their needs. So yeah, customer discovery, it's a very easy thing to say. It is an exhausting process, but probably the most important part of getting a business up and running. If you're going to do it successfully, I think hearing what your customers have to say is number one. Yeah, and in many cases, I was the customer. A lot of the people we sell to are CIOs. So you have your head full of these assumptions that, well, I know what CIOs need. Throw all of that out the window and just listen to what they have to say, because what you think really doesn't matter much. It's what your customer thinks.
Very interesting to also hear not only when you're starting the business, but this need to have ongoing ways to get customer feedback. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
That's how you protect against the risks of the future, right? Is to make sure that you're a part of it.
Right. Okay, so we're going to switch to a few specific questions. And Hannah, we'd like to ask you, because your product is a physical product that consumers buy, how did you go about handling the product development, the production, in the beginning, and maybe how that's changed?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, the food industry has low barriers to entry because, we all create food in our homes every day. And then it just kind of becomes, okay, well, what are the steps to kind of scale it? And you can kind of go little by little, right? Farmers market, local co-op store, carrying around in my station wagon. Like I did all that. I did the station wagon, all of it. So I think, when it comes to, I think this transcends just food though, which is, I would say that development process is very iterative. And like, you could even look at a really big company, like big food company, you might see a product out on the shelves one year and the next year it's gone. Like there's iterations that happen. And in food and in all industries, where what's relevant today and what's working today might not work a year from now. So I will say, like, out of the gate, sometimes I'll meet in the food industry specifically, but really across other industries where people are like, I am really committed to this exact product. It's my grandma's recipe for a yada yada. And they commit really narrowly to the product instead of the problem you're trying to solve. So I would say that, make sure as you are doing product development, and we've made this mistake 100 million times, but like, try to stay focused on the solution versus the product, because it is iterative and it does change over time. But to get to the tangible part of food, right? Like, we do look at trends. We are leaning really heavily when we develop product into being innovative, which means we don't go out and just see what everybody else is doing. Like, oh, keto's big, let's make a keto product, right? Or whatever it is. We try to start with that core problem of people health, which has become, as we've grown, into planet health too. Like, the two are kind of related. So that's where we get into like using things like upcycled ingredients. And so it starts there. And then, with our business, it really starts in a kitchen, because that's where you make food and try it out. And then you taste it in a kitchen too, usually. And then from there, we go into commercialization, which there's obviously with food, scaling food has its own intricacies and nuances, as far as food safety and regulation. But trust that process was really knocking on doors. I had no experience scaling food production, none at all. So it was me trying to Google places that had big ovens and had conveyors and packaging equipment, and literally going to the grocery store and being like, this product was made in Minnesota, which is where I live, and looks kind of like what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm going to call them up and see if I can get a hold of the person who runs that business and like ask some questions. And so just trust that, like, I didn't know a thing about food production, and now we have commercialization processes and we scale in different manufacturing partners, but you will figure out the how, and it's not always like linear, but that's just a little insight as far as kind of, I could talk for a long time about really bringing 7 Sundays to life and to scale, but that's the long and short of how we do it.
That's great. And you mentioned iteration, which fits really well, because we wanted to ask John to share about his pivots or changes, John, that you made from your original idea. Could you share about that?
Oh boy. Yeah. So when we first started the business, I had mentioned we were, calling on these hospitals and working with hospitals and doctors. And so that original idea was to take hospitals or large local clinics that needed extra shifts covered, and then match them up with physicians and doctors who were close by, within a 1 to 3 hour driving radius from that clinic. And so it's all about the physical world. We started growing very nicely when we first launched, and over the course of about 4 months, we enrolled 1,000 doctors. We had signed about 26 major health systems that covered about 100 different locations, and we had covered about 700 shifts over that time period. And then COVID just was in full swing. And so after that, it was interesting. You'd think our business would have just taken off, but it did the exact opposite, because during the early stages of COVID, they were so concerned about how they were going to respond to it, all the people that were in there, where we're going to get ventilators, that actually trying to get additional staff in wasn't their big priority. And so I couldn't sign a deal. I couldn't make any more matches. We just seemed to be absolutely floored. And so we sat around for the next few months hoping it was going to rebound. It didn't show any signs of doing that. But when we looked around the rest of the healthcare market, telehealth was obviously growing by leaps and bounds during that time. Right? Everybody started seeing their doctors on FaceTime. More and more just standalone telehealth companies were popping up. They were getting funding from investors. The mental health boom within telehealth was really starting to take off. And so a lot of those companies were experiencing problems with scaling, like the growing pains, right? A lot of them didn't have the clinician labor necessary to meet the demand. And so we pivoted ourselves into that space and applied relatively the same business logic. match the supply to the demand, except now do it within the digital first healthcare world. And Hannah talked about it. I talked about it earlier. We are relentlessly customer obsessed. And so all we did was listen. And it became very apparent that our clients were like, hey, we love your clinicians, but it still takes us 6 weeks to onboard them because they have to go through all the compliance and licensing and background checks. So I said, great, we're going to start doing that ahead of time so that as soon as you say yes, they can instantly start working for you. So we built that back office infrastructure in-house. We listened again to our clients. They were built on a lot of homegrown technology. They didn't have an enterprise scalable solution that was built for the telehealth world. So that's when we started building out this end-to-end tech platform that they could build and launch their business off of. And then they started doing that. We were ripped out and replaced a lot of their own technology. And that's the way we've continued to grow the business. And that's the way we've iterated over time. Where we are today is not at all where we started, and it's not at all where we'll be in 10 years from now either.
Wow, such good examples, but I'm sure a little gut-wrenching at times. And
it's nerve-wracking after you've raised $500,000 from investors, and now you have no idea what you're going to do with it.
But you found out, so
we
that's
found
good.
out, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, so you are in an industry that is like ever changing. Tell us a little bit about how you stay up to date with the latest challenges, technology, cyber attacks, that type of thing, if you could share.
I promised I would be fully transparent. So this is a little look behind the curtain. It's a variety of different things. I know I keep rattling on about being good at a thing doesn't mean you can run a business that does that thing. I just keep hammering that home. So I know a little bit about cybersecurity. There are a number of different places that we keep up to date as sort of practitioners. Conferences are a big thing. I've been going to DEF CON, which is this huge train wreck of a hacker conference since the 90s when it was 200 people and I had hair down on my back and it has evolved into this huge thing, but conferences are an important part of sharing. Frankly, the stuff that happens before and after the conferences are where you really, really learn what's going on. There's a lot of reading online. So places like Dark Reading, there's a wonderful podcast, Darknet Diaries, that anybody can listen to. If you like NPR, he's sort of the Ira Glass of the hacker world. It's fascinating to kind of hear how things happen in there. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. I find all of this just fascinating. So it is a labor of love to learn all of these things. The other thing that you may not hear from others that do my job, we learn a lot from what happens with our clients. One thing happens on the East Coast at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and it tends to sort of boil over across the country. So we learn pretty early when a bad thing is coming. We deep dive it and learn everything we can about it. And then we share what we're able to learn in that moment with our clients, with each other. Internally, we do a meeting called Word on the Street. It's easily the best attended meeting in the firm. So everybody from offense, defense, and GRC, our compliance world, as well as incident response, they share, hey, here's the thing I saw this month that just blew my mind. And sometimes it's a technical thing. Sometimes it's a version of malware. Sometimes it's a regulation. Like, hey, look at what the banks in New York are doing this year. Like, this is going to change things. So we share with each other quite a bit. I learn a lot from the employees, and this is something I've always done. I try to get out of my office and out of a conference room or Zoom in the post-COVID world. And go spend time with the people who are actually hands-on keys. Like, I like to get next to the person who's hacking the bank. I like to sit in on a meeting with our folks who are talking to clients. I learn a ton just by interacting with our employees. And honestly, the more junior they are, frankly, the more I tend to learn from them. this is a thing that happens, kind of boils from the ground up. So the interns that we bring in from the university or from Kirkwood, I learn as much or more from them as I do any senior member of the staff. The questions they ask, the technologies they uncover. So I guess if I had to boil it down, I learn a lot from all your traditional sort of sources, things that I'd call maybe professional responsibility. But I also like to embed myself with the clients, and I love to listen to what the experts that we have at the firm are talking about, because that's where you really, in cybersecurity, that's where you really learn what direction the winds blow. And at the end of the day, Kimm, that's what clients really pay us for, is to keep on top of all this so that they don't have to think about it. It's a lot. And if you're not a huge, passionate nerd about this stuff, it can be grueling to learn any of this. So yeah, it's really a combination of listening internally, listening externally, but always listening, like always trying to figure out what is the thing that's happening that could affect our clients.
That's so fascinating because your situation is, like pretty immediate, and you've got all these different places that you need to be listening to, and I'm sure innovating. I mean, this idea of word on the street, and having that type of a meeting is, at least it's something new to me. It sounds like it's pretty cool to get some information going between the team members. So that's great.
It encourages the younger we don't just leave it to the department managers to present. So sometimes it's an intern presenting to the whole company, like, hey, here's an exploit that I built that allows me to get into this guy's computer system. So it is not just a management presentation. It's a show of technical acumen, of insight or innovation. Honestly, sometimes it's just let me blow your mind and show you this thing we created. I'll give an example. One of the team members spent $30 on parts on Amazon and developed a piece of technology that allows you to insert yourself between a keyboard and a computer from a kilometer away. And they plug it in, and I found out about it because my computer starts typing for me. Which is also something that happens at work. They love to mess with me. So it's just, you never know quite what's out there. But the one thing we do know is that if we are able to pull the technology down and make it work, somebody else with a lot more time on their hands is doing the same thing. So it's a fascinating intellectual exercise, but it has a direct application in our work.
For sure. Well, love hearing about the fact that you're engaging with interns. We promote that with students and entrepreneurs, that there's value in listening to all of those different perspectives and what they're doing. So Hannah, we're going to ask you to share a little bit about this idea. We heard you talk about upcycle materials, and you mentioned that you're a B Corp. Can you share what are upcycle materials? How did you decide to do that? And anything about B Corp you want to share?
Sure. So I guess just kind of coming full circle to, starting a company and what sort of drives you to do such a crazy thing. Leave your job for no pay and lots of risk and all the things. And so I think just hearing everybody talk today, Aaron and John, I mean, there is, a fair amount that we pour into this that really has nothing to do with the paycheck, right? And so I think with 7 Sundays, it's a little bit part of my own personal navigation through this starting of a company, and at the same time as I started a family. So 7 Sundays was born the same year my first son was born, and kind of what that meant to me and Brady, who's my partner in life and also in the business. And so you asked about upcycling, where we have kind of leaned in as a brand, and our mission is in that sort of intersection of people health that I keep mentioning, that also, as we've learned and tried to find, we're truth seekers trying to figure out what that means. That also means planet health. And with kids, our whole lives have changed and shifted toward future generations and what this all might look like for them, for their own health and for the health of the planet. So as it turns out, Kimm, upcycling and reducing food waste is the number one thing you can do for climate change to help reduce it. So there's a lot of, think of all the resources if people have gardens, right? I mean, a lot of resources go into growing food. And if that then food is not actually utilized to its fullest potential, that's a lot of wasted resources, and so inputs and soil health and all the things. So we began innovating to, back to product development. When we innovate, we obviously are always trying to think outside the box and bring something new to the table, literally, I guess, and figuratively. But part of that is we try to solve the planet health problem at the same time because food is such a contributor. And so one thing that about 4 or 5 years ago was saying, okay, we want to create a better for you cereal, something that kids will eat, that has a really clean ingredient deck. We could go lots of directions with that, but there's actually a lot of nutrition being lost in the waste stream through a lot of processes. So we have multiple lines of cereal that are upcycled, which basically means we're taking nutrition that would be what we call land dropped or composted and putting it back into nutritious food. So if anybody has ever had oat milk before, like this is a great example, oat milk has become all the rage. It's awesome if you don't want to do dairy because it's nice and creamy and naturally sweet, but it's like a super wasteful industry, right? If you think about how oat milk is made, you're blending oats up with water. And oats are really nutrient dense. They're a lovely grain. You blend it with water, you squeeze out the starches. That's why oat milk, if you've ever noticed, there's like a little bit of sugar in oat milk, but there's not sugar in oats. It's because you're kind of like changing the product. You extract the starch, and then you've got all this leftover meal that has 3 times the protein and twice the fiber as a whole oat. And it's nothing being done with it. It's kind of being land dropped. So we essentially launched the one that I showed you earlier, like a Cheerios, which is an oat cereal that all of you know, with the byproduct from oat milk production. So we're taking that really nutrient dense meal there's no use for it right now. There's no developed supply chain for it. And we developed a supply chain around it and a product around it. I don't know if that was too in the weeds, but that's what upcycling means. And I also wanted to give the context of like why, right? And it just ties all back into our core mission.
No, that's great. Really appreciate the information. And I mean, the planet is or should be on top of our minds, right? And how we can nourish ourselves as well as the planet. Really love that. Well, this has just been so fascinating, and we want to take a few minutes as we're finishing up to ask each of you, what advice would you have for anyone listening or that listens who has an idea or wants to pursue being an entrepreneur? And John, I think we'll start with you. What advice would you have?
Yeah, I think Hannah said something interesting earlier. There comes a point where in an entrepreneurial journey, I would say that the thought of not doing and pursuing your idea weighs heavier than the thought of leaving the security of what you've known. And so that is a pivotal turning point, I think, in every entrepreneur's journey. And then once that feeling is there, my advice has just always been incredibly simple. Like, just do it. Successful entrepreneurial stories don't just happen from dipping your toes in the water and expecting things to magically happen overnight. It requires blood, sweat, tears. Like, I'm sure Aaron and Hannah can attest this, but I've dreamed about my business. Like, I have constant dreams. Like, some are really good, some are really scary, but it spans the board there. It becomes your life. And it's something that you just have to jump into the deep end, both feet all in when you get to that point. So don't shy away from it. Just open those doors and walk right into them. And And then I would say, just one other tangible piece that I think has been the most important skill that any sort of aspiring entrepreneur could give themselves is the ability to sell. That permeates business in every aspect. Like there's the obvious, most direct example. Like, yeah, you built a product or a service and you have to be able to go sell it to clients to generate revenue. Like that is the most obvious part of it. But it also gets woven into every other aspect of business. You have to be able to sell your investors like, hey, I have this crazy idea and actually I'm the person to deliver on it and you should take a bet on me. Like that's the act of selling. You also have to convince some people to leave their very safe, secure jobs to come join you as an employee and take a risk on you and a bet on this idea that it's actually going to turn out to be meaningful and impactful. And that's, again, selling, right? So everything that we do on a daily basis involves selling. Like if I have a new idea that I bring to the team, I said, hey, let's go chase after this. There always has to be a why behind it. They want to know why we're doing, and that requires persuasion of selling them on this new initiative that we're doing. And so having that ability or learning it prior to getting into business is an incredibly useful piece of advice I got.
Thank you for that, for sure. Hannah, what advice do you have?
Double down on everything John said for sure. I know this session is all about like the how and kind of making the leap. And like, I guess the thing that I would share here is there isn't a playbook for starting something new. Like that'd be awesome if there was, but the whole idea is that you're paving your own road. Like that is the idea. And I think like I had to continuously remind myself that the harder it was and the more pushback I got could actually mean that I'm being innovative. Now there's times when you have to know you have to pivot, right? Those are different. But sometimes when you're like the food industry is like a pretty, it's been around a long time. There's a lot of systems and distributors and all this stuff that's like been there a long time. And so when things were like really hard and felt impossible, it was because I wanted to change that system, right? So the friction is needed. You have to be able to withstand that friction. And the thing that allows me to withstand it, because I'm a pretty type A, like safe person, was that I cared so deeply. So I had the passion behind it. But there is no playbook. Really, even on the bottom of our bag, we say like my big thing, which is think outside the box, because again, like if you try to develop a playbook, if you try to piggyback on an idea, like you're not being innovative. So know that there's friction with this. Know that there will absolutely be times where you might feel like, wow, a rational person should quit. Like if I can look back at many times in our business and say with all honesty, I think a rational person could have quit right there. So to be very clear, like it's messy. And though, deep down, like the only way that it will fail is if you quit. So you got to push through the barriers and lean into that passion and know that there isn't a magical playbook. And we say it all the time in our company. We're like, there's no magic bullet, no magic bullet. Like we're going to keep pushing and figuring this out. And the reality is like 12 years later, for the first time, really confidently, I can be like, wow, we built something super special. Like, this is super cool. Like we're growing like crazy. But yeah, hopefully, the idea here is to inspire you all because it is messy and it's okay. Like to know deep down that you can get through that if you care deeply enough is really empowering. But you have to know that like you've got it in you and trust yourself and not get sidetracked by the shiny object or that one voice that says, I don't like your idea. Like, don't let that stop you. I had a lot of that.
Thanks, Hannah. Inspiring. Thank you for that. And Aaron, what advice do you have?
Real quick, I think it is about putting yourself around people who will be honest with you and honest with you about you. I could not have done any of this without Heather, my wife. Honestly, the spouse of a CEO or of a founder or whatever takes on as much or more of a responsibility as anyone. So finding somebody that you can lean on, somebody that can lean on you when you need it, I think that has been a key part of it. You don't do it alone, and anybody who tells you that they did it by themselves isn't giving credit where credit's due. Yeah, it's a lot. My spouse, she will pull me out when I'm too heads down into things. She'll help me to understand a lot of what Hannah is describing, right? Like, this is a mess and you knew that. So how are we surprised that this is a mess? Like, there's a lot of therapy moments with doing this job. It owns you. But I think if you're surrounded by people who are good with you and understand you for your faults and your strengths, and I mean, really, credit where credit's due. I didn't do most of it. It feels like the people around me are the folks that help me to be successful at this.
Well, thank you so much for that, Aaron. And I want to thank all of you for sharing your journey and being inspiring. You were inspiring. And I think too, what you've all created has helped a lot of people. So not to forget all the people that you're serving and the innovations that you are making. It's appreciated. So thank you very much. And Barb, did you have some last comments?
Well, I will agree with you, Kimm. I am also, I find this inspiring. Some of it is perhaps frightening, and I think you guys have been really honest about the scary parts, the where you just have to go for it, how important the people around you, not only the coworkers, but your family are to the whole effort. So we just want to really thank all of you for taking the time today to join us in this webinar. As we mentioned earlier, it is recorded and will be shared with everyone who registered. In addition, when we close, there will be a short survey that will pop up on your browser, and we would greatly appreciate you taking a few minutes to just fill that out and let us know what you thought. Lastly, when we do send out that follow-up email, we do have a list of resources that we will make available online, and you'll have a link in that email, and that provides you with a number of different resources to the Papa John Education Center, to all kinds of different organizations, even a list of books about entrepreneurship. So if you are inspired, we're going to give you a little bit more fodder, and we're going to encourage you to please reach out to the staff of the Papa John Education Center, because there are so many resources here at the University of Iowa that are here to help you. So with that, once again, thanks to everyone. And as always, go Hawks.